So I look at all of these polls and I don't believe any of them, because every single door pretty much that I'm knocking on in this election, I can't find anyone who says that they actually like the work that Doug Ford's been doing.
Everybody in Norfolk, Haldeman, Norfolk loves Bobby Ann. She says it the way it is.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in the riding of Haldeman, Norfolk in southwestern Ontario. And I am with Bobby Ann Brady. She is the only Independent MPP at Queen's Park. She's running for re-election in this snap election that apparently nobody except Doug Ford and his people want. It's an incredible story because winning as an independent, regardless the level of politics, folks, it really is a Herculean task, but it was never meant to be. And Bobby Ann, can you recap what happened going back to 2022? You were supposed to be the candidate for the Progressive Conservatives, but things didn't work out.
Well, I'd say that I may not have been the candidate, but I at least wanted an opportunity to throw my hat in the ring and run in a nomination against anyone else who wanted to throw their hat in the ring. And democracy was, slapped down in 2022 because Premier Ford came into this riding and said, this is going to be your candidate. And local Conservatives and myself, as the PC Riding Association for over 23 years, said, we're not going to stand for this. How do you retain and attract people to the table to raise money, to go out there and run campaigns when the single most important decision that they can make every few years is choosing their candidate? And Doug Ford took that decision right out of the hands of local Conservatives. And I said, no, we're going to challenge this. And it's all about democracy. It wasn't about the candidate at the time. We didn't view him as being, a conservative, but it wasn't personal. It was about democracy. And one of the things I'm so proud of the people of Haldeman, Norfolk, is that they went to the ballot box in 2022 and they did something bold and courageous. They went against the grain and said, no, we will make our own decisions. And, we are very principled people here, salt of the earth, and we don't like being told what to do. And so now in 2025, Doug Ford has done the exact same thing. He's come in, he's appointed somebody, a mayor, that we do not view as being conservative.
What are you hearing when you go door knocking in terms of getting re-elected in 2025?
So what I hear at the doors is people are well aware, but more so than 2022, they're aware of what we did in 2022. They're aware of how hard I have worked over the past 2.5 years. And they're very well aware of the fact that I am not under someone's thumb. I am not under Doug Ford's thumb. I am not under a party's thumb. I can go to Queen's Park. I can stand up and I can ask whatever questions my community wants me to ask.
When Bobby Ann first ran, I had Doug Ford's office call and ask if I would support the PC party in the next election. I said, nope. I said, Bobby Ann Brady is getting my vote in Haldeman, Norfolk. And she received it again last Friday. And if she runs again next time, she'll get my vote again.
Bobby Ann is clearly a local favorite. Everyone knows who she is. If they don't know who she is, they can find her easily enough through her literature. And I think the local feeling is that they'd rather have a strong, independent local person working on their behalf than have someone who's just a creature of a larger power that, in the Green Party members' words, don't care about them.
Nobody tells me what I can and cannot say or can and cannot do.
Well, apparently the Premier thinks he can tell you what you can and cannot say. Folks, this PC government has 83 of 124 seats. In other words, it's a supermajority. Check out this clip of Bobby Ann Brady in the House asking a question, and check out Doug Ford's reply.
In January, I launched a petition calling on this government to follow the lead of Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. No response except for carbon tax referendum legislation that does absolutely nothing to help the people of Ontario today. It's a publicity stunt.
You call that a publicity stunt? By the way, you won't have a job next election.
The tagline for Jaws the Revenge springs to mind. This time it's personal. Why, in a supermajority government, is Doug Ford seemingly obsessed of enacting a measure of revenge by making you lose your current job?
Well, I think that someone, and I don't know if it's the premier or someone within the party, is, they were embarrassed. They told us in 2022 we could run a monkey as long as it has a PC logo on its back and we will win. And I said, no, you don't know the people of Haldimand, Norfolk. You're not accurate in that assessment. And so I think that this is personal for them, that they think that they're going to teach me a lesson. So they said in 2022, you won't do it. You'll commit political suicide. You'll be an embarrassment. And I said, well, that's all on me. So now their agenda is, well, you will never do it twice. And I say to them, you are the same people who said we would never do it in the first place.
Incredible. Bobby-Ann, why are Ontarians going to the polls to begin with? Doug Ford said the ostensible policy reason is that he needs a mandate to fight against Donald Trump's impending threatened tariffs. But if he didn't call this election, he had that supermajority mandate until June of next year, almost 18 months. That's an eternity in politics. Why are we here?
Well, if it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable, because he does have that mandate that goes until June 2026. And I maintain that Doug Ford is at the polls right now. We are in a $185 million election right now because Doug Ford's trying to do two things. One, he's trying to get ahead of the federal election. Secondly, he's running from the RCMP investigation into the Greenbelt scandal. This buys his party 3 extra years to rebuild after the RCMP perhaps bring out their report on him. Going
back to 2018, remember, this government said they were going to rein in the radicalized McGuinty-Wynne sex ed curriculum. It's worse than ever. You see all kinds of examples of wokeism allowing biological males to play and injure females in sports, whether it's volleyball, rugby, swimming, you name it. I almost feel like I'm a victim of bait and switch. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I always say that I'm the most conservative person on the ballot. I am a fiscal conservative, but I do believe that there is no monopoly on a good idea. I've seen my friends in the NDP benches, the Liberal benches, Green Party benches bring forward ideas that are good ideas. And some of them are very conservative ideas, and they get voted down at Queen's Park. And Doug Ford is not a conservative. And I know that's offensive to him, and he's, some of his folks have come at me for that, but he's not a conservative. And I think that, once this election's over, it's an opportunity. I think Doug Ford won't be around forever, and it will be an opportunity for the PC party to pull together a rebranded party that brings back some of the values that really matter to Ontarians. And not having a monopoly on a good idea is one of those values.
Bobby, and unfortunately, I think you're right. I don't think Doug Ford's a conservative. I think I was one of those people who assumed Doug Ford was the same as his late great brother, Rob Ford, who I dearly miss and I had great respect for. One of the greatest political slogans of our young century, respect for taxpayers. I look at the deficit, I look at the debt. It makes the former Liberal and NDP governments look like spendthrift conservatives.
Yeah, it's absolutely a tax and spend government, and he's got a tax and spend mayor on the ballot here in Haldimand, Norfolk. It makes no sense. The taxpayer is no longer behind the wheel. The taxpayer has been put in the back seat of the car. We need to return the taxpayer behind the wheel so that they are in charge. Government works for you, not the other way around.
There has been so many joint pressers with Premier Ford and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's almost as though they're buddies. I never see Ford and Pierre Poilievre together. What's going on?
I don't know. I question the same thing. I see a premier here in Ontario who has abetted much of what Justin Trudeau has done over the past few years. And case in point, last year, the response, that I got to my question about the premier following in Saskatchewan, Premier Scott Mosley.
Yes.
The carbon tax, it's a regressive tax. I agree with the premier about that, but it's a federal issue. And yet the carbon tax was brought up every single day in question period, multiple times during question period. So I finally said, enough of this. We need to focus on healthcare. We need to focus on education, all of the provincial matters.
The carbon tax. So let's actually talk about it. It's a distraction from the real issues like the Greenbelt scandal, the healthcare crisis, $9.8 billion $1 deficit, the increase in the Premier's office staff, many of whom are enjoying an income greater than a combined income of families in my riding of Haldimand, Norfolk.
And yet he stood up and he chose to yell at me. He didn't actually say he couldn't do it. He chose to yell at me.
That's a publicity stunt. We're the only government in the history of Ontario that have never raised a tax on your parents, making sure they're going to have a job, the students up there.
People are tired of the lies and the bullying that's going on in the House, and that needs to stop. We need more independents running that actually care, and people need to make that voice heard, that we're tired of being put in a place where we don't need to be. We need to have our say. We matter.
I'm not speaking for anyone else, but they're not small C conservative, they're not progressive conservative, they're just spend happy and so-called conservatives.
There's been a bit of a smear campaign against you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing that they have on me, they know how hard I've worked. They know how much people in this community appreciate the work that I've done. I've been very, very honest. In a supermajority government, my job is not to go to Queen's Park and sit there through countless hours of debate that means nothing to the people of Haldimand, Norfolk. If we're discussing Toronto issues, I'm here. I go to question period, I get in my vehicle, I come back, I go to farm meetings at night, I attend local events. You know why? Because the people here are what guide what I do at Queen's Park. So the smear campaign is a bunch of, I call it mathematicians, Martinomics, whatever you want to call it. It's all a farce. It's all a lie. I wore a red dress to Queen's Park one day and all of a sudden I'm a liberal. It's desperation at its finest.
This is a man, I think, being driven by people behind the curtain, this anonymous, unelected team. Do you have any insight for us on that?
I sure do, and that is what is destroying party politics. We no longer worry about the grassroots. When you hold up one of my events locally, it's all grassroots people coming together in a barn, getting together. You look at that of the PC candidate, it's all tightly controlled, videotaped by professionals, maybe 10, 12 people standing there saying what they're told to say. Doug Ford is a victim of that. Every leader becomes a victim of being tightly controlled by, a team of people who say, don't say this to... They take away the things that make you actually a very dynamic person. I say to the voter out there who may be sitting on the fence that you need to look at each of your candidates. Look at not only what they say, but how they say it. I am the candidate on the ballot locally with the most passion for my community, and that comes from 25 years of being embedded in this community. If any candidate thinks that they're going to go to Queen's Park and they're going to advise on policy every single day and draft bills, they have been completely misguided. So I say to the electorate, I say, choose the person who is going to be the fighter, the champion of your small issues or your big issues. When you need help, you can call that person up and they're going to carry it like a dog with a bone.
Hey folks, I know you love it when Rebel News brings you the other side of the story, but unlike the mainstream media who get funded by Justin Trudeau, we don't receive a nickel's worth of government funding, nor would we accept it if offered. But can you help us out? Can you go to rebelfieldreports.com? That's rebelfieldreports.com. And if you're able to, kindly make a donation.